That was quick. What's going on, fellas? Welcome to Red Morning. We're doing this one solo. What can I say? Bringing the high energy. Welcome to 2021. Pandemic flu electric boogaloo. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself. I am anyway. Um, Steep in the coffee. So we'll sit here and start enjoying the regular Le Creuset in a minute. Figured we have a really good episode today, by the way, Rule Zero, on Rolo's channel. So that'll be kind of fun. But we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions. And I thought, so in this one, we usually have like 5 or 6 people, 6 or 7 people, whatever, however many we have now. It's not really a lot of time to flesh stuff out. Like everybody kind of hits their little surface level things, which is nice because everybody has their own different take on it. So it kind of spurs some new thought. But thought I'd spend some time and focus on it a bit here because I got some stories for you. Hey, what's going on? I see a bunch of regulars in the chat. Hi, all you guys. I'd mention you all by name, but that would fill the time, and I don't want to pad the runtime on this thing with you. I hope you're doing a workout if you have a gym. Thank God for that. If not, well, I don't know. Cold shower and knuckle push-ups, I guess, is your best bet. So New Year's resolutions. I can't stand them, and I am still surprised they carry on now, because I'm sure most of you guys are smart enough to remember the how did it work. So there was a study on it, and I know I talk about dopamine a lot. So dopamine is basically like the alpha hormone. If you got liquid panty wetner coming off of you like glistening sweat, chances are the girls that are talking to you with the big pie plate eyes and the anime 3 dots and circles in the eyes there are doing dopamine hits, and they're getting it from you. So that's that alpha. A lot of guys seem to be getting that too, which is a little weird. But they're not getting it over other guys. They're getting it over the idea of them conquering the world in 2021. Well, at least for the first 6 weeks. But, so here was the thing. The study was dealing with people talking about doing something versus actually doing something. And what they found was if you're the guy who proclaims, yeah, 2021 is going to be great. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Everybody on your social media hits like, tells you you're awesome, back pats all around. Then your body gets that dopamine hit. And once it's got its fix, there's no real need to do anything. And so we found out, and I cannot remember the percentage. If one of you guys is smarter than me, which I'm sure you are, but if you have the source and you can remember it, please link it in the chat. But it was found that it was like by a not small margin, people tended to talk a lot and do very little because they've already got the dopamine hit. Kind of reminds me of relationships where like girls like, she'll put out, but once he nuts, he doesn't like her anymore. And she's like, oh, I don't get it. How did that happen? Oh, like, oh, the reason that happened is because you weren't very good with a personality. You couldn't drywall. And so he just got what he wanted from you and left. So what do I see? I don't know, New Year's Eve, it's COVID, everything's closed, so we had to stay home, which was kind of neat. Having said that, a lot of people from probably Brampton had the same idea. They came in and blocked my driveway 40 cars deep. Started shooting off fireworks. I'm like, well, at least they got fireworks there. That's all right. I will take a minute here to lament. I don't know how Toronto hasn't figured this out by now, but if they'd load up for their fireworks display instead of going to City Hall where nobody cares, just start shooting them off from the tower. Dude, people would love that shit. Anyway. So I'm watching the absolutely most depressing New Year's Eve celebration, which I actually found entertaining because it was so damned cyberpunk. If you guys hadn't seen it, it was this great one. It was, I can't remember who did it. There was 2. There was the one in New York where nobody's there, and then the other one with Anderson Cooper getting drunk on TV. My buddy and I were talking about it yesterday on the phone, and I guess Anderson just phoned in. He's like, yeah, I'm getting drunk, whatever. Got drunk, crapped on the mayor. Yeah, my mom slept with Marlon Brando, eh? Eh? I'm like, oh, Jesus. Dude, if my mom slept with Marlon Brando, I wouldn't be telling any of you people. But it was just so weird. Like, it summed up 2020 perfectly, although I don't think they intended it. But if they were self-aware, bravo to them. A completely empty 28 days later set in New York Times Square. A bunch of like global multinational corporations, Planet Fitness there, having breakdancers breakdancing to nobody. And then a whole like the occasional forced crowd of people when asked what are they thankful for and what are they looking forward to, they're like, I want this virus to go away and everything's great and everything's wonderful and we're perfect and I'm definitely not coping for like abject misery. And I was like, this thing is brilliant. And then it turns out that I don't know who the champagne was that sponsored it that year, but they have like a new transgender champagne, which I don't know what that means, but it came in a pink bottle, so it probably cost 15% more than it's supposed to. And the whole thing is just ridiculous. Like you look at it and you're like I get the clown world, honk honk, yeah. But like I'm a normal guy. You're a normal guy. None of us are like those crazy internet people that have crazy internet thoughts. We're just normal people. And when you see this, like this isn't Avola reading Pepe the Frog anime meme on Twitter ranting about this stuff. This is like NBC New Year's Eve. Like it doesn't get more milquetoast normie family friendly fun than that. And I was like, holy shit. Having said that, the chat salvaged it where all I could see in the chat was people like complaining that BTS wasn't going to show up and then hopeful that BTS would show up. I don't know if BTS showed up. I turned it off and went to the Canadian channel. I think Canada did New Year's much better this year because we knew we couldn't have any of that get together stuff. We didn't want to have people wearing masks, talking in wacky inflatable tube men. Or, by the way, put in the chat what your favorite moment from the New Year's celebrations were. But all they did is they brought this band in, Dwayne Gretzky, which is funny because it really is sticks in your head because everybody thinks Wayne Gretzky. And it's like a 10-man band. They just do be real stuff, singing hits from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And they put them in like a private house party. And it looked like a party because it was like 10 people in the band, but it was just the 10 of them. And I'm like, and they had like the vaporwave, the cyan, and the magenta there. And I'm like, that's damn perfect. That was brilliant. I liked that. And to be fair, it gave me the complete aesthetic of, I don't know if anybody here has been to Halifax, but Halifax has more bars per capita than I think anywhere in North America. But I remember, well, I'd go with my buddies and we'd go drinking in just one of the bars in Halifax along the waterfront there. And there'd always be like an in-house band playing B-side stuff. And you're sitting in, they're not quite log cabin aesthetic, but they kind of got that maritime log cabin look. And it's just the whole thing. Like they really did make it the most Canadian thing I had seen in a long time. So it's pretty cool. Oh, wait, Nelly was in. Jeez. All right, let's see some of these. Let's see some of these favorite moments of New Year's. The champagne identifies as wine. Cute. My favorite Times Square part was Nelly performing I Loved Celebrating 2021 with music from 2003. Oh, Nelly. Does he still wear that Band-Aid on his face? It was like Crips and Bloods used to have that teardrop tattoo. But then he's like, you know what? We got to do something for the nice suburban middle class kids. And so he put a Band-Aid there instead. It's like, I got the tattoo removed. We're going clean like Run DMC now. All right, whatever. There we go. Hope you guys, if you've had coffee steeping this time, it's about time to pull it off. Cheers. Oh, look at Sloth here. Ran into an old friend and his Ripper kid, so it's nice to be forced to keep up. I'm always blown away by kids' learning progression. That's awesome. All right, so enough like waxing on about how ridiculous the entertainment was supposed to be here. The point of this one was talking about resolutions. Obviously, I already did the study where it turns out that running your mouth about resolutions doesn't actually solve anything. And then I was looking at the brand side of things. I don't know, there's this guy, Dan. I don't know much about him. I just know Rule Zero Dad hates him. And Ed tweets him a lot. So I just happen to know what he says. But I saw like the most ridiculous thing ever. And I think it's part of like this temperance, Puritan work ethic. It's almost entirely an American thing, by the way. So for a lot of you guys, this may not apply. But for a lot of you, it probably does. Yeah, it's okay for New Year's if you want to go to bed at 9 o'clock. You got to get up. The effect was like, if you're not up early starting to build your empire, then you're going to miss out because like, the race is that close that if you miss 5 minutes on the starting pistol, you're basically done for the year. You might as well just go into a hole and die. Go do your best Saddam Hussein cosplay. Like, oh, no, man. No, it's just like, I picture the guy who goes to sleep at 9 p.m., New Year's Eve, doesn't celebrate. I mean, whatever, drink or don't drink, don't do drugs, whatever. Doesn't celebrate, wakes up like at 3 in the morning and starts doing his taxes. And I remember there was a Simpsons episode where Ned Flanders had that, where he, like, the alarm clock goes off, it's like 12:01. He's like, well, 1990 or 2000, I got to start doing my taxes. Yeah. Ooh, here's the good one too. So, like, I like this, so I'm putting this up on its own merit. We're gonna leave that there for a second, but I'm gonna finish this point here. So you get this, and the problem with that is nobody's gonna do that. Like, there's maybe one guy out there who doesn't drink, doesn't party, doesn't like his family, goes to bed at 8, wakes up at 3 in the morning, does a bunch of push-ups in the cold. Like, all that shit is the same thing. You set up this gigantic list of, like, impossible to meet demands, telling a guy that if you do this is like, do you honestly think Jeff Bezos wakes up at 4 a.m. to do knuckle push-ups? Do you really want in? Here, one sec. The dog's clawing at the door. He wants to come in. Apparently these podcasts soothe him. There. Here you go, fatty. Now lie down and don't say nothing. No, you're not getting on my lap. Like, yeah, do you think Bill Gates honestly does this stuff? Like, no, they don't. They sleep until 10 sometimes. Sometimes they're up at 7. It really depends on what they have to do. And I think that's the telling part of this. If somebody is actually building something, they don't need to be told when to wake up. Like, if you're building your own thing, it's not time sensitive. January 1st is a holiday anyway. Nothing's open. Not to mention, nothing is open. So then I got to thinking, so why does this thing resonate? You're setting up an impossible ideal. Why would somebody want something that's impossible? It's not because they're actually going to try to make it. It's not because they're going to get there, try to, but they, make it 80% of the way and then pat themselves in the back for a job well done. I don't think it's that either. And this is the part that the episode's going to get kind of like, oh, Patriarch, we're talking about the ridiculousness of the New Year's resolution cold push-up, knuckle push-up shower shit. But here's the part that gets me. Okay, so you set this up as an impossible to meet thing. From a branding perspective, it's brilliant because you're telling a guy, yeah, I'll get you 6 figures, 6-inch dick, 6-pack abs. All you got to do is follow my 100-step, impossible to follow program. So that's brilliant. Because the guy will do his best to follow it. The kind of guy who would pay for whatever course and whatever. Try his best. There's no way he's going to make it perfectly. But that's the thing. So he goes through somebody's 10-week to alpha course, 31 days to masculinity, 7-day abs, whatever. And he's like, yeah, at the end of this course, what you promised didn't deliver. So what's up? And then the guy will look down his list and go, well, did you meet objective 37 Bravo 2? And the guy's like, which one was that one? And he goes, well, clearly the one here where it says you make all your ice cubes out of hot water, not cold water, you didn't meet it. So if you didn't follow this entire thing perfectly, it's not my fault that I didn't promise what I delivered. It's your fault for not being perfect at implementing it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Because, like, if you guys know from a branding perspective, I've always gotten mad at idiots who call themselves coaches. I think coach is the stupidest term for, like, any kind of self-improvement, lifestyle, blah, 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 any of that shit. Because coach implies accountability, and there is no accountability online. There's guys telling you to smoke cigarettes to be more of a man in here. Like, how accountable could it be when you're basically telling somebody, hey, cancer sticks, get on it? It's like, fuck off. So you call yourself a coach, and I'm sure everybody's heard this speech a bunch of times. If you're working for, like, the LA Raiders, and you're a coach, and the team stops winning Super Bowls, you probably get fired. But that's the thing. You can't fire, Dr. Babe, Dude Love, relationship counselor. You can't fire... So you can't fire these guys. They're not accountable in any way. None of us are. I flat out said this too back when I still did consults. I told guys, like, as you sign up right here, I can't be accountable for your success or failure. That's why I use the term consulting. It's like, this is information that may or may not help you to some degree or another based on the best knowledge I have and like full expectations going in. But the problem is that doesn't work well on marketing. Like, I can only promise you the tools and you have to do the work yourself, and guaranteed doesn't exist. Doesn't sell as much as, dude, I'm Coach Guru. I will unfuck your shit. Like, wow, thanks, man. I did it. No, you didn't. See, you missed that part there where you had to clip your toenails from right to left. You did left to right. So better luck next year. But then I'm like, are people stupid or gullible to fall for that one? Part of me wants to say just yes. Like, I could think of like a very respectable guru who offered a Forex course, how to get good selling things on Forex. Whole bunch of people popped into my DMs. He started a beef with me a little while ago. I'm not going to mention who it is. Started a beef with me a while ago for some clout, whatever. And then my DMs blew up. Not from him and his followers, but from guys that were on this Forex course with like screenshots of how much they had been scammed out of. I don't know if scammed is the right word, but it's the word they used. It's basically scammed out of money. One guy actually did, and this is the funny thing. Talk, talk about being so smart you're stupid. This guy, dude, what? Fine. Here. Talk about being so smart you're stupid. This guy had enough mathematics knowledge to calculate over like a 15 trade window what the odds are that all 15 trades would have been bad versus had he just like the on the Forex course versus if he had just flipped a coin or this random chance. And it turns out he's like, yeah, it's mathematically impossible to be this wrong by accident. Like, it has to be on purpose. And I was like, oh my God. So how are you smart enough to be able to calculate that, but not smart enough to realize this probably isn't the course for you? So part of me is like, okay, so it's just guys are pretty naive and gullible. Dude, I can't drink coffee when you got your head right there. But then a part of me thinks a lot of guys kind of don't want to succeed. Like, that's common as shit. You see that here everywhere. Guys would rather create an identity around being unattractive than they would working at being attractive, but maybe not being as attractive as they want to be. You know what I mean? Coach Guru, I think he coaches the Jets. Figures they'd hire him on the Jets. They got all that money to spend. They're just buying playoff rings. And I'm going to get to this one in a second here too, JD, because I don't think that's an entirely good one either, and I'll tell you a story for that in a minute. I don't think guys want to succeed. Guys actually made that thing called the black pill because they wanted to be unattractive, and they would rather, be unattractive in a gang than attractive by themselves. Yeah, it's self-sabotaging. But here's the thing. I think the idea of signing on to the impossible task and then failing at it is a clever psychological term or a clever psychological concept. Because then it's not your fault. Well, all you have to do is be perfect and this stuff will work. It's like, well, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So why even start? Yeah, of course I was going to fail. Basically setting yourself up for failure because it's not your fault. It's the grifter's fault. That's why there's like tons of accounts that are just out there calling everybody and their mother a grifter. It's the grifter. It's the grifter's fault. And then that gives the age-old question. Well, who should go to jail, the drug user or the drug dealer? Or who has the addiction problem, the drug user or the drug dealer? The drug dealer will often say, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, which is a bit of an ethical, hand wave, but you know what I mean? Like, ethically, there's a lot of questions to ask in that one. I wouldn't bother asking it because I'm just like, well, why don't I just follow something that's not stupid? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't need to have perfect six-pack abs. And I think that's a really nice message. And I'm seeing a lot of guys like Rob Says or Nick August and that. Dude, if I don't pet this dog, he's like takes his cold, wet nose and he puts it on like the sensitivest part of my arm, like right on the wrist. I'm like, geez. So they do that as a self-sabotage. And I get it, because I used to do something similar myself. I would, like everybody when growing up told me how smart I was. Oh, you're so smart. You're so smart. Wow, you're smart this, smart that. They put me in like a special kids class where we got to play with cool toys and pretend to take an LSAT and an MCAT and all those different tests. And it felt very cool, made you feel like you were special. But that was the problem, is that when all the basic shit was easy, super easy. Oh yeah, I can go to math class, learn this one, pick it up, pass the test, whatever. But some things are hard. And I don't care how smart you are. Something is always going to be hard for you. Maybe math is great for you, but you're really not good at engineering. Maybe you're great at engineering, but you don't know how to talk to a girl. You get what I'm saying? There's always some weak point somewhere. Nobody's perfect at everything all the time. And those things take effort. You have to learn a skill. You have to get better at it. You sometimes have to rewire yourself to understand things from a different perspective, whatever. Problem with being a smart guy is that signals that you're not smart. Signals your identity. Oh, smart people figure this out instantly. The fact that you had to take 2 weeks to learn it, oh, dude. You're better off just saying, yeah, well, if I wanted to do it, I could have done it. Or, well, he just set out to be like all that self-sabotaging shit. And that's kind of at the core of all this New Year's resolution bullshit, is guys telling themselves that it's not their fault. They could. They just don't want to. Oh, I could hit on girls. I just don't want to. I'm like, dude, you bought a sex doll. Don't tell me that you're not attracted to women and like having sex with them. Like, come on, dude, don't bullshit me. Don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. Don't piss on my bullshit and tell me it's raining. Oh, Bach, it's the first stream I'm watching this year. Well, I'm glad you've got such good taste, sir. And that was the part that kind of gets me. And it was something I kind of noticed from like the New Year's Eve celebrations too, that Planet Fitness Global Homo one, is that everybody was sitting there and they're like, yeah, this is great. 2021 is going to be awesome. Oh man, this is the most fun. Like everything's fine. We're all perfect. And this is fine. This is fine. Hey guys, this is really great. This is fine. And I was like, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like strong, independent women. You know what I mean? Strong, independent women that are like, hey, I'm strong, I'm independent, I'm a woman. I'm a strong, independent woman. You just got dumped. Yeah, but I'm a strong, independent woman. It's fine. All right, you're kind of in debt right now. Maybe you should start up. I'm starting up an OnlyFans. I'm a strong, independent woman. I'll make bank. Well, it turns out the OnlyFans market's bottomed out and you're earning dick all. And now your new boyfriend thinks it's weird. Yeah, but I'm a strong, independent woman. Like that whole coping strategy where it's just like, if you repeat it enough, maybe you'll believe it. And it's that same thing. It's like, I don't think people want to succeed. I think people want to feel like they're succeeding. I think they want to lie to themselves. That self-deception, which is weird. It's like I've coined the term sexual diabetes, and I think this one applies to there as well. Bit of backstory if you don't know. Oh yeah, financial advisor. I'm going to get that out of here, but I'm coming back to it. I promise. The sexual diabetes was my idea for the concept of instincts no longer serving our interest in the land of abundance, in the information/attention economy. And the reference I use is our hardwiring. So back in the cave days, cavemen, cavewomen, they go out there and, they develop traits. Their genes kind of spread out different ways. Some do well and keep going, and some die off. In the case, the one that stuck with us is like a craving for simple carbohydrates. So chewing on a sugar cane, because that gave us enough calories to go hunt a bison. Then we could, attract Cave Stacy, have cave babies. So now we have a bunch of cave babies that are all hooked on sugar. But sugar wasn't, like, there's no sugar cube trees. You have to chew on a sugarcane root for an hour. And it worked really well because you needed all that energy for hunting. But then you develop a machine that makes liquid sugar, put it in here, and you still have that same instinct. But the problem is now that same instinct is giving you diabetes. What was like a life-saving instinct 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, or whatever time, is now actively killing us. Diabetes. And so I thought, what about sexual diabetes? It's kind of like the same process. Back in the day, there was maybe 150 people in your tribe. 75 women, 75 men. The men kept dying off. And so if you started treating men as like valuable, didn't really work. You'd end up with a tribe that was all dudes and they'd die off after a generation. Meanwhile, the ones that treated their women as valuable, Sure, maybe sometimes like 80% of the men die off, but that 20% remaining would make more babies. So you kind of had like a weird eugenics program where only like the strongest and most resilient guys stayed alive, and they were incentivized to like treat their women as porcelain, valuable things. Worked great then, but now we got 8 billion people. There's 4 billion chicks with that same sense of entitlement, and it's just not working out. I mean, and I don't have to tell you guys, all right, here, buddy. And I don't have to tell you guys how that manifests. God knows. Red Pill Alpha 69420 tweets about it on the daily and posts Reddit posts on where have all the good men gone. So you kind of know. So that's the same thing. It's like what used to be a really good survival instinct is kind of ruining us. And that's kind of what happened here. The dopamine was really good because it incentivized us to achieve things. And now because the feeling of achieving things is just as easy as actually achieving things, got that New Year's Eve diabetes. Doggo has been yeeted. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't mind. If he wants to sit on my lap while I'm podcasting, like, I'm all for it. But, dude, he just has this need for constant affection and attention, too. And I'm like, I'm trying to drink a coffee. I don't need a cold, wet nose in my palm. And then he starts shoving his nose into the microphone. I'm like, just going to screw up your guys' audio. Damn straight, Iggy's. All right, so JD was talking before about a financial advisor. And I don't like financial advisors at all. I don't think they're good at finance or advising. The only story I got to that, though, was, I mean, my adult life, joining the military, first thought I had was, all right, so now I need to do the adult stuff. So let's start investing. RRSPs, which I think you guys call 401s. 401s. And it was like 2006, I think, when I started. And like, yeah, so right now, like, banks are the greatest. Gold is risky. What's your risk level? You're asking like a 23-year-old kid what your risk level is. And I'm like, I don't know, medium. Yeah, they're very good at commissions. They're like, oh, it's perfect because we just happen to have this financial plan right here. And if you look at it year over year, this is what the average is. And the average is like 8% year over year. But they're like, ours does 10. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. But something they don't tell you is this thing called, I think it's an MEP. Essentially, by a managed fund, they take a certain percentage of your profits off the top. And theirs was like 5%, something stupid like that. So yeah, it was 2% over market average, but they're taking 4 points off the top. So it's technically performing, in actuality, it's performing 2% under average. So right there. And because I don't know any fucking better, I just see the 10%. I'm like, oh, that's great. They don't tell you about the fees. They've since been forced to disclose it. But yeah, so it turns out I was actually underperforming on that fee. And not only did they get the couple percentage points off that fee every month when I was donating, you know, like however many thousands of dollars a year or tens of thousands a year or whatever. Not only that, but they're making money off of it too, which was great, except for, I know, 2008 rolls around and their whole advice was like, yeah, invest in real estate and banks and avoid gold. And then 2008 hit and I'm like, oh dear, I seem to have made a hell of a mistake. And then I ended up losing like 30% of my investments there. So essentially, working for like years, I had essentially just committed to a 30% pay cut, which, granted, I only invested maybe like 20% of my gross income, so 30% of that. So you're taking basically like something like a 5% pay cut just for listening to a financial advisor. And it's the same. It's the dude. And this is why I'm not too hard on the guys. You sign up for 6-pack abs. So I'm like, same thing there. It's the exact same dynamic. So then I wisened up and I realized, okay, next time we talk to one who was, oh yeah, well, this perfect fund here. And I just look straight to the MEP and I'm like, oh, fair enough. Yeah, I can see why you like that one. Let's just do it with an index fund. I'm like, all right, fine. And it did okay. And then we started getting like iTrader and stuff and learned just to start doing trades for myself. Been phenomenal. Turns out that me, who knows sweet FA about financial independence, investing, and what have you, has done better on my own than people with, I don't know, how long is the financial advisor course supposed to be? I hope it's not like a 4-year degree because they're wasting their money. But I'm better than the experts. So I'm like very, very skeptical. Ah, yeah. See, yeah. And their profit shouldn't be pushing you into suboptimal ROI, which is my irritation with the financial sector. It's so incestuous how it recycles cash. Yeah, they shouldn't be. And girls shouldn't be flaking you on dates. If they may give you their word to go up, they do. And these grifters, these guys selling you courses on six pack abs should make realistic courses based on provable results. And sunshine should smell like candy. And, full moon should make werewolves and a lot of shoulds. You notice that? There's a lot of shoulds in life. Your brother did it first, so you shouldn't get punished. Why you hitting me? She did it. She hit me first. Why are you yelling at me? All this, yeah, you should. Should. There's no should. The point is, people are incompetent, people are predatory, and for those that aren't, they often have systems that are. My next blog post is going to be, I haven't done a blog post in forever, by the way. It was pretty neat for it to get back into it. First draft is done. After we're done this cast and the other cast, I'm going to read through it, do my editing. But it's about, 7,000 words right now, so it's a bit of a slog. I can hopefully chop it down to 5. And it kind of gets into this same thing here. Yeah. And here's the thing, too. See, like, Ali Alayubi, he's got the right idea. And here's my problem with the way it's worded here. Not that I disagree with it at all. Getting access to a bunch of new people is great. But networking is like a fuzzy term and people don't really know what it means. But I'm seeing that already playing out. Like, obviously, he's part of Rules Here Now. He works with Rolo, all that kind of stuff. The networking worked for him. Yes, absolutely 100%. My friend back home, I just talked to him yesterday. It turns out our old executive officer, we used to fuck around with him forever, man. Forever ago. And it turns out now he's up for probably one of the biggest promotions a naval officer could have. So it's going to be cool where, like, a decent friend of mine is going to be in one of the top positions. That's kind of neat. Luckily enough, too, the friend I was talking to, he's shooting for some top positions himself, and he just realizes, like, oh, that's awesome, just because I've known this guy for 12 years, and we've been hanging out and spent time together, and just so happens that it became like an awesome network. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Good for you. So I've never been able to see the equivalent in corporate side, other than with contractors liaising with each other. But it's a strong thing. But that's the problem, is there's no how to network. Because networking is just game for dudes. You have to be competent, you have to be useful, you have to have an extended relationship with people over a length of time. No. It's a good skill. It's just hard to talk about it like, oh yeah, just go to the store and pick up some networking. You know what I mean? So there's New Year's resolutions, complete BS. I like Merck's take on it though. The rebranding of nepotism and tribalism. Absolutely, by the way. But that's the problem. If you say tribalism, that's kind of like generally a masculine thing. Guys don't get together the same as women. We have that initial fit testing, wholehearted acceptance, male social matrix thing. Girls just have put them in the same room and they'll immediately get together and then constantly undermine them. And that's the problem, is that it's not a good network if everybody in your network is just a frenemy. Like, I don't know about you guys, but Game of Thrones was not the best way to get promoted. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Chicks are taking over the corporate world, so good for them. I wish you all the best, good sir. Good luck on your Gillette razors. So back to the topic. New Year's resolutions. So we've kind of established that a lot of these New Year's resolutions are just tattooing "born to fail" on somebody's forehead. Sometimes it's because the guy selling the guy on self-actualization can't deliver and he just sets up impossible standards so that way it's not his fault when the guy inevitably fails. By the way, side note on this, that is a clever psychological technique to have repeat customers, which I don't know if you know. It's a weird thing. People, and it's because people invest in it. If you're paying $397 for your course, you're more likely to think the course is successful regardless on whether it is or not. Now, I'm not saying all courses are unsuccessful. Some courses are very successful in what they do. But that's not the issue. The issue is by paying for it, you're investing in the idea that it's good. And again, this is why your ego is never your friend, because you could have a course that has that same like grifting pattern of impossible to meet standards. If you don't follow it to the T, well, then it's not my fault. It's your fault you failed. And then the guy internalizes that. And this is, talk about, here's your New Year's resolution. Stop being told that everything is a failure on your part and just judge things by their outcomes. But that's what happens then. The next course comes out. You're like, all right, I'll try it again. I'll do it better this time. And you try it again and again. And you end up with those two types of people. There's the kind that's emotionally invested in this one-armed bandit. He keeps pulling the thing and getting the thing out the other side. And, I won once. One of these times, I'm going to get a 777. I got 3 cherries like 2 weeks ago. But I know if I keep hitting this arm, if you guys don't know, the one-armed bandits, the gambling machines. That's why they call them bandits, because they just take your money. So you get those types, and then you get the guys that are doing it as like an ego-saving measure. That's perfect. I could do it if I wanted to be perfect, but that's too much effort and I can't bother. I'm a smart guy, trademark. And, yeah. So then I'm like, I've come to the conclusion, and I think you guys will see this too, where it's not a failure of man. It's not that the guys are naive and gullible, even though they are. It's not that they're doing anything bad or wrong. It's not that the guys running courses are doing everything bad and wrong. None of it is. It's just, this is the way mankind tends to play out. That's how it all plays out. It's how life plays out. Everybody's lying to everybody. Everybody's lying to themselves. These things play out the way they will. Whoever's strategies tend to navigate this stuff better tends to do better. And on the other side note, yes, Glendalough 13. My girl bought it for me for my birthday. And I was like, how much did you spend on this? And she showed me the price. I'm like, don't ever do that again. But it's good. It's that one that's finished in the Japanese oak. It's a different taste. It's Irish whiskey. And I noticed it, I don't know how to describe the taste, but I call it Band-Aids. That kind of Band-Aid medicinal taste. It's got a very strong hint of that on like when you first drink it. But it's very smooth and it passes fine. Very strong. Strong in the same way that peat is strong, but not in the peaty taste. Oh, Glendalough. All right, fair enough. I like that. I like that take, though. Trust is loss. Here's the thing, though. I take... So if you want to talk New Year's resolutions, here's another one. You could take the self-ownership route. So assuming that none of this is bad people, and all you got to do is find good people, and then everything will be fine. You just think of this as like, this is the human condition. This is what life does. And it plays out in all kinds of different ways. Then you're like, okay, so whose fault is it? And you're like, I don't care whose fault it is. I'm not a 6-year-old kid wanting to blame my sister. I'm just worried about whose responsibility is to deal with it. And then you start taking, all right, if I end up in one of these things that doesn't work for me, my responsibility. Don't sign up for another one. He hasn't proven to me it works. Or, maybe vet your gurus better or whatever it is. The point is, you just take responsibility for your own life. And I know this sounds like pablum. It feels great, man. Extreme ownership's like, no, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about nobody's invested in your success but you. Nobody. I don't care how good your friends are. I don't care how much your mom loves you. I don't care how great your wife is. I don't care how much drywalling she does. Nobody is invested in your life but you. Not to the same extent. Yeah, your mom's happy when you do well, but if you do sad, she just feels sad. But I mean, doesn't pay the bills. Your wife's happy when you do well, and your wife's, sad when you do sad or angry at you or whatever. But like I jokingly say, you're the only one that wipes your ass every day without complaint. And so maybe you should start treating that guy a little more importantly than you do now. And it's a very flippant way of putting it, but it's kind of true. Like, you are willing to do things for yourself you would never do for somebody else. Just roll with it. Roll with it, man. And there's this Alpha's point here about working and snowboarding. The work hard, play hard. I don't know if I can blame the military or my childhood ranch for this lesson, but it's probably one of the best lessons I've ever gotten about this stuff. Work hard, play hard. Because a lot of the Puritan work ethic, New Year's Eve, wake up at 4 a.m. and do your taxes crowd, doing the knuckle push-ups and shit, they don't want to do work. They want to do make work. busy work. They want to feel like they're working without actually having to like tie it to any outcome. They think the process is more important than the result. If you give them two options, here, I'm going to give you an option where you can work 1 hour this year and make $1 million, or where you can work 3,000 hours this year and make $500,000. I wholeheartedly believe that most guys will take the 3,000 hour job versus the 1 hour job. Because to them, it's not about an outcome. It's not about living the life you want. It's not about what the resolution is. It's about the process. The idea is that I'm working. I feel useful. I'm great. That's why you tell your wife, like, I have a great job. And they think like, oh, that'll wet in her panties. It's like, no, dude. She doesn't care. Nobody cares about that but you. And it's so weird. Like I just said before, that nobody cares about you except for you. So start treating that guy a little better. And you can already see how it's very easy to bastardize that and to like make work jobs. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's do a top up here. Absolutely ridiculous. So what do you do then? I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not afraid to admit it. I got drunk on New Year's Eve. COVID's locked us in our house. We're going stir crazy anyway. I bought a 40 ounce of Wabarowa vodka. Polish vodka, by the way. It's probably the most best quality, underpriced vodka out there. Polish friend of mine that I used to sail with, she always told me that the Poles make the best vodka because Russians have no taste buds, so they just like theirs to burn so they can still feel. But the Poles were held underneath the Russians' thumb during the Soviet Union, so they had to make good vodka to compensate. I'm like, all right, fair enough. Yeah, so it's not hours invested, but that's the point. Like, I'm sure everybody here, at least I hope, everybody here has had a crunch time moment in their life where you have to work hard and you have to work long and there's a deadline that you have to meet, and then failure is not an option. Whatever pain you have today is way better than the pain tomorrow if you don't meet that deadline. And then you get through that and you're like, oh, I can do it. I did it. And what a lot of people now are doing, like, well, if it worked once, let's try it every day. And then they're finding why it only worked once. It only worked once because it turns out it has a little bit of a toll. Like waking up 3 hours earlier in the morning than you're used to, screwing up your circadian rhythm. Eating ramen noodles because you want to bootstart your business. Like all this stuff, it takes a toll. And while you might be able to pull like 120% effort for like a week, it doesn't happen for like a month. After that, it really, really quickly drops to like 20%, 10%. And that's why this work ethic stuff, you need to balance it out with work hard, play hard. So case in point, I am putting a challenge out to anybody on Twitter. And there's always going to be one idiot going here, but it's a rhetorical device here. Just work with me. Somebody who went to bed New Year's Eve at like 8:30, woke up at 4 a.m. How's your empire going so far? It's been 2 days. How far is your empire going? And I will compare it to my stayed up past midnight, got up at like at 8:30 in the morning, which for me is sleeping in. I don't know. Am I doing the fucking cold knuckle push-up thing too? I don't know. Military brainwash me. I have a hard time sleeping in. It's the first time I've slept in past 8 in like 10 years, by the way. So I don't know if I'm proud of myself or not, but I think I should be. Yeah, crushing it. Exactly, Rob. Crushing it. So what did you do? And that's just it. I think you're going to find over time, like no successful person I've ever met has been into temperance. There's been guys that I see make a ton more money than me. Like you guys probably know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say who, but they go off and they drink and they get high and they have fun because they're human beings, and human beings kind of need leisure to balance it out. You can't just be working 100% 24/7 all day and then doing nothing. No, occasionally, and I hate to say it, but sometimes just shit posting on Twitter is the way you unwind. But you don't need all that. You don't need 24 hours a day to build an empire. You just need something scalable. And this is another thing that gets me here when you hear about these guys building their empires off of their New Year's resolutions. It's that they're still thinking like one of the poors. And I know a lot of people say that it's like a bougie thing. It's like, oh, look at don't be poor, and you're like, oh, that's very rude, and it kind of is, but that's not how I mean it. I mean it in the sense that there's a very different set of mental models you use in one environment versus another one. I actually talk about this in the book, where I talk about guys who used to be unattractive and became attractive can still have those unattractive mental models. And so they still act like an unattractive guy. Fat guy loses a bunch of weight, still acts like a fat guy. Which is weird because then people see him as this attractive guy, but he has these really odd, unattractive ways of doing things that people aren't used to seeing in that package. And so people don't know how to respond to it, so they just kind of call it creepy. Poor people should just buy more money. Yeah, this is not let them eat cake. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to adapt, not just physically or financially, but like mentally as well. So I think the biggest difference between, and I'm going to butcher this, but whatever, fuck it. The middle class and the upper classes is whether you have to work to fund your life or whether your assets fund your life. And you're going to notice that plays out in two different ways. So if your work is what sustains your life, well then work ethic tends to be the mental model that gets you there. I put in an honest 8 hours work for 8 hours pay. I used to be a rancher. I get it. And that works fine. Working at an office, they're like time in chair. You're here for 8 hours, so I need you to sit in this chair. Well, I could work from home and get the same stuff done in 2 hours. Like, I don't care. I want you here for 6. I want you here for 8. You see what I mean, though? Like, you start noticing, and this is like those professional jobs are the ones that start earning, 100,000, 120,000. Like, you're crossing the divide between the middle classes and the upper classes. And so a lot of guys are kind of realizing a lot of those middle class mentalities do not work in like upper class positions. And it's the same thing here. You can't think that like you can power through everything. Sometimes you just have to be smarter about it. Sometimes there is nothing you can do but wait for a better opportunity. That's leisure time. That's the time you spent where some guys spent, just getting high off of whatever the god. I don't even know what pills take now. Are Xanax still a thing, or are people onto like new things? Vice hasn't done that like taking drugs in Russia episode in forever, so I don't know what we'll do now. Thank you, Wando, for the £2 or €2 super chat. Calling it a pound. Not a pound anymore. Book and the audio were great. Well done. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, there's my New Year's resolution last year. Write a book and then do an audio book. And then I just went and did it. I'll put that up again for a little bit there. What can I say? You know what? He's happy. I'm proud. Why not? Let's pat each other on the back for a job well done. Yeah, and then Jussie in the chat here. Haven't been doing anything for the past week or so. Winding down. It's been so good. I agree, 100%. And so here's psychologically, I don't know. Here's guy swapping notes. Here's my note. Something I have noticed with the way I tend to work, because I do burst kind of like that. I will sit here, and I think you guys have seen it. If you follow like the channel for any length of time, you can see it where I'll put out like, remember for a while there, I was doing like 3 videos a day, 3-4 hours of podcast while I was writing the book on the back end and doing other things. It was like an insane slog. I remember the joke where some guy goes, well, I started putting out like 1 video a day or 1 every 2 days. And the guy's like, hey, what happened to your 3 videos a day schedule, man? You should go back to that. And I'm like, get fucked. But that wasn't sustainable. It's not going to last forever. It got a burst activity, got a huge amount of content. That's awesome. But then afterwards, you got to slow it down. And Jesse's right. You have to give yourself permission to be on free time because otherwise you never will be. And that's the problem. Had I stuck with that schedule, I would have been spending 3 times as long to get the same amount of work done. And then I essentially lose all my free time. It's not just about losing the love for doing things. It's just like, yeah, it's not sustainable. Periods of light exposure. Yeah, 100% agree. Also, a lot of networking at the bar. Go figure. Hell yeah. It's just, it's the best way I've seen it work. And so then I'll take some time and not do things. And I'll take some time and do things. Here's the best part about this. And this is the part I was going to get at with like how the process has worked for me. So when you got the motivation and the discipline and everything aligns, crush it. Do your huge amount of work. Go get it done. And then you're going to notice there's a point where you're like, I'm just sitting here staring at a screen. It's 8 o'clock and I don't know what I'm doing. All right, I'm calling it in. And then you go do nothing. You just play video games and smoke weed all day, whatever it is you do. I don't really care. And at least for me, what I've found is after a certain length of time doing nothing, you start to get stir crazy. You start to get fidgety and you're like, oh, kind of antsy. My girl's huge on this one too. Bar hopping and naps. Oh, Nick. My girl's like this too. She's been like burning out at her job. Took a giant vacation on Christmas. And then like 2 days into the vacation, she's like, oh, I'm going to renovate. I'm going to retile the den. I'm going to renovate the kitchen. I'm like, all right. Bam. Once the bug starts hitting and that frustration hits, it's kind of, I don't want to call it motivation, but clearly are like, we have like a work ethic circadian rhythm. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a hormone attached to it. Maybe it's just, how this thing plays out. I don't know the mechanism. I just noticed that everybody I've known who's successful have periods of high productivity, long hours, extreme motivation, and then periods of like lethargy and just not wanting to get anything done, followed up by like that fidgety, stir crazy need to be busy and then fill their time up with more stuff. Yeah. Looks like I'm not the only one. Rainer here, same thing. I get fidgety or anxious after 2 or 3 days being lazy. Dude, my basic training was actually a perfect example of this. So we all got our orders to go to basic training, head to Esquimalt on this day. Your basic training starts on the Monday, whatever. I can't remember the day, but we showed up there and then somebody who had drafted the orders made a stupid mistake and they put the date as 3 days earlier than it was supposed to be. So like, what are we going to do with all these recruits for 3 days? All right, we'll just put them in the barracks, have them to do their meal times. All right, guys, stay here. Don't leave in to go to town. We basically were like quarantined into this room. And so 50 of us were sitting there in this giant, room, same as you would for any basic training thing. And like, just stay here and we'll see you in 3 days. And nobody brought anything. We were like, it's basic training. I think one person brought a deck of cards and it was like the most amazing thing we'd ever seen. Here's the thing though. First day out of the gate, our team was like motivated and crushing it. No work was too much work because we were all so bored and we'd all gotten to know each other so well that we basically just came as a mean fighting machine. Granted, then the chicks kind of screwed that up. It turns out all right, we had a few, they all managed to find deployment or basic training boyfriends, which was kind of crazy. Even one of the instructors, she ended up sleeping with one of the students. She was a bit of a... The instructor was the girl, by the way, not the student. Just in case you guys think it's something to struggle huggish. No, that's not where the story's going. And she'd already been in trouble 2 times before about that, too, which made me laugh. But whatever. She could do more pull-ups than half the group, including this gigantic cornbread Newfoundlander. So, mad respect there. She's a good soldier. Yeah, so a lot of them would just like fool around in the mop closets so that way they would get out of doing work. Started a bit of a fight because one dumped one guy and went to another guy and all this kind of nonsense there. It was kind of ridiculous, but the whole point out of the end of it was just give us nothing to do for long enough and then we're desperate to do anything. Maybe that's the economic plan for North America right now, by the way, with these quarantines. Shut down everybody's business, huge austerity measures. Then as soon as they lift the COVID restrictions, everybody's going to get out there and start, rebuilding the pyramids or some shit. I don't know. Ooh, by the way, everybody needs to write for Punch Riot. Great magazine. I need to start writing for Punch Riot again, but we'll see. I'm in like the Drew thing here where I need to write for them again after I finish the projects, and that back burner comment never seems to manifest. So if I don't say that I'm going to do that, I won't get the dopamine hit, and I may actually write something else for Nick. So here's hoping. If you guys haven't, go to punchriot.com. Great little publication. If you've ever wanted to get your like writing career started, I think it's a great place to start. What do they want? 1,500 words. 1,500 words. Something literary, something masculine, something well written. None of this ranting about Evola and shit like that. Like something actually good that other people want to read. But hey, give it a shot. I like that. Drew, it's good to see you back though, man. I know you've been kind of banned from Twitter, so it's like you just stopped existing there for a bit, but it's good to see you. Oh, so then so why am I shitting on this work ethic thing? Well, some guys just like working 24/7, 365 and doing their taxes at 4 in the morning. Why are you shitting on them? Here's why I'm shitting on them. Another story. This one is from my PLQ. PLQ is primary leadership qualification. Once you get promoted to a certain rank, like Master Corporal or Master Seaman, I think in the States that's the equivalent of like an E6, E5 maybe. How does it work? Is E1 a higher rank or is E9 a higher rank? I don't know, whatever. I want to say, I just remember oh, no, wait, I think it's number 1 is the lower rank because we used to tell San Diego we were E3, so we get a better golf club discount in San Diego. All right. So here's the story. PLQ, primary leadership qualifications. The idea there is they want to instill a sense of leadership into you. And the way they do that is by creating an environment of huge stress, too much work to get done, lack of sleep. And the idea is during these stressful situations, you learn to stick to your training. Ah, okay. So it'll probably be the equivalent of the PLDC then. That makes sense. E4 to E5. All right, so go with that. So when I say PLQ, just think PLDC. Our day started like at 4:30 in the morning, and it ended like at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, something like that. A lot of like make work shit. Okay, E9 is higher. Okay, so for us, like I know for our rank equivalents, we were like E5, E6, but that course sounds exactly like we were doing. And so our whole platoon, we'd had one platoon, 5 squads. Bear with me, I know I get the language. We're the Navy. Like the language is going to be not very Army centric, but so every squad gets their one leader assigned to them. So you're going to get about a week in there, and then the platoon, you get to lead the entire platoon once or twice, just like a couple days. And that's the idea: is how do you run this entire unit? Know our mission, know our goals. My turn came up, and it was during a lecture. We were learning how to give lectures. This is how you train people. This is how you give briefs to command teams. But you did it in the form of like a brief to a command team, like you were briefing the captain, it's probably one of the more useful skills that came out of that course. The rest of it was just busy work. Here's the thing though. So I was platoon commander during that, and the schedule for the briefings, there was like, 60 of us, something like that. Each one gets an hour-long briefing, so it takes days, and they make sure to fill the entire day with it. And for the guy before me and the guy before me too, before him, were doing it. We were pulling these days where we started like balls to the wall at 4:30. We finished the lectures at 6, but then we have 4 hours to get an entire day worth of other tasks done, and everybody was just exhausted. So I'm like, all right, it's my turn up. Here's what happens. I noticed that while we're giving these lectures, nobody's required to sit down on the lectures, just the instructors, because they have to evaluate you. So I'm like, all right, perfect. I talked to the squad leaders. I'm like, look, we're not actually required to be at these things. Look at our SMESIC orders right there. So we'll keep one group around just so that we have somebody in there. The other 3 of you guys just start getting all the tasks done we have to do throughout the day. Well, I wanted to, you don't need to listen to them. It's fine. Just go get those done. And then what happened was around like noon, all of our tasks for the day were done. And we had like 6 more hours of lectures or something like that. I know the numbers aren't perfect. It's been a while. And so then I okay, guys, bring all your guys in here, except for the one guy giving his lectures. They all come here. I'm like, look, everybody who has a lecture going today, stick around. Everybody else just go home. And they're like, what? You can't go home. You can't just send half the people home. Like, I can. Technically, right here by the standard SOPs, it says I have the authority to say when the day is over, and I'm accountable to any things for the day, so I can, and I am. People are like, what? And they feel bad about, what about the reservists that have to stay here tonight? And I'm like, well, then they can stay here tonight. But you know what? Right now, this course has been absolute ass. So go spend 5 hours with your fucking family. I can't believe I'm going to have to argue. And I had to argue at this point. Then finally, everybody starts going. They all leave. The instructors go to do one lecture. They come back out. There's 10 people out there. A lot of people got mad at me. I'm like, look, as the platoon commander, I'm technically the last person to leave. Like, I'm by the SOPs, I'm the last person to leave. And so, all right, fine. You can't bitch that you have to stay late. I'm staying later. And because there's a couple reservists that were here that had to live on the barracks, it essentially meant you're pulling an all-nighter. So next day, everybody comes in, happy as day, big cheery smile. Even the people that had to stay late with me, they came in happy. They came in happy. Everybody else is happy. It's like 4 a.m. I hear stomp, 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 stomp. And Corrali, this big Hungarian Amazon bitch of a petty officer, get in here. Drags me into this room within earshot of the rest of the class, but it's private. Chews me out. 15 minutes just yelling at me. What the hell do you think you're doing? Where do you get off? Blah, blah, blah. This is going to cost you this, that, and the other thing. I sit there and I take it. Because whatever. What am I going to do? Not have my heels together? And then I get outside and everybody's like sitting in the halls waiting for inspection. And they're just looking at me like, oh my God, are you okay? What happened there? And so I go to do my turnover to the next platoon commander. And we have the section commanders there. And they're like, oh man, that was horrible. Are you okay? Like, we should never do that again. I'm like, look. Here's how I look at it. These guys, like 60% of the platoon, 70% of the platoon, you guys got 5, 6, 7, 8 hours with your family that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I got chewed out for 15 minutes. I think that's a pretty good trade-off. Anyways, and I give them the briefing book and that, and everybody has a good laugh about that. One of the other instructors, his name was Pichet, French guy. I guess I didn't notice at the time, but the whole time she's chewing me out, he's like, you had this kind of smirk on your face, like you had gotten away with something. And he thought it was funny. We ended up working together later on, and he's like, hey, I'd liked working with him. He's a really good boss, but I think he kind of got the game too. And that's probably the best lesson on leadership I ever got, was the one where I got chewed out for not showing good leadership. And it's really it. It's like the trade-offs. And so I don't like this. The problem with that, like, Puritan work ethic attitude is, had I had that, I would have had everybody just sitting there making themselves busy until 10, 11 o'clock at night for a 4 o'clock in the morning wake-up call. Somebody's wife probably got mad or sad or cheated on him. You know what I mean? Like, all those things happened because I would have been so preoccupied with looking busy and feeling like I'm productive than actually just focusing on what mattered. It was just a simple opportunity cost. I get chewed out for 15 minutes. 60 people get 50 hours or get 5 hours apiece. Like, good. Anyways, I missed some super chats while I was telling the story, so I'm going to get back to them here. Oh, wait, where'd it go? So yeah, take that story for what it's worth. Learn something from it. Don't learn something from it. I don't care. JD, thank you for the £5 super chat. Congratulations, by the way, on the Empire getting its sovereignty back. I guess it's been a good new year for you guys. So with lockdown, you have to ask these people, is this existence as a member of the pseudo-undead somehow with less freedom than being dead? Well, you see what I mean, though? That's a perfect example of it, too. The quarantine. Nobody wants to lift quarantine. Amazon and like Google, Facebook, they don't want to lift it because they're making money hand over fist because everybody's at home on Facebook and Google and YouTube. And, thank you for sticking on to YouTube, by the way, but, we're filling their pockets. Mr. Bezos bought himself another house on a mountaintop for this. So they don't want to push this stuff. No politician wants to push this thing because picture this. Let's say right now the odds of anything else happening with COVID are like 0.01% something. All it takes is one person to die after they lift restrictions. That to be used to just hammer a dude's career. You said it was safe, and this 107-year-old person with cancer and AIDS just died after licking a homeless guy in Wuhan, China. You're a horrible politician, and so they don't want to take that potential reputation hit. Because for them, it's much easier just to say, we'll do everything we can as long as we save one life. There's enough people that kind of buy into that emperor has no clothes lie. So they have no incentive to lift the restrictions. People making the vaccines have no incentive to lift the restrictions because the restrictions, that public fear and the promise of having it lifted means they're probably going to get a lot more adoption of the vaccine than whatever. But that's the thing. Everybody's following their self-interest. It's who's at fault, the drug dealer or the drug user? The answer is neither. It's just the way it plays out. Everybody's incentives align here to continue to cause restrictions and lockdowns and what I call is like a medical austerity. Remember austerity back when everybody's like, this is bullshit. Turns out you just got to add a flu to it. Now everybody loves it. And so we've created this prison for ourselves based on this whole risk-averse Puritan work ethic attitude, man. Yeah, and you're 100% right on this, by the way. Many won't take a bullet for others. Majority are conflict avoidant at all cost. Which is, it's a little sad. Because, I mean, I don't even consider that taking a bullet. I've been chewed out for 15 minutes. I can do that fucking all day. You understand it's theater anyway, right? Like, nobody's actually angry. They're just yelling because as a supervisor, when you yell at somebody, you get the point across more fervently than otherwise. Oh, actually, here's a good question. Is Twitch dead? Should I unsubscribe from the channel? Yeah, probably. Like I said, we gave it a shot for a good, 6 months there. There's just no way it grows at all. I went on to YouTube. We're back on YouTube on the second channel, Digital Ryan now. It's already gotten as big in the first 2 weeks, so I think we're going to stick with that. But anyways, thanks for your support, John, on that one there. Yeah, if you probably won't be seeing stuff. I may use it once in a while. I don't know, but at that point, I'll give people a heads up. Maybe it become big enough where it's worth doing again, or Twitch decides to pay me money to subscribe to the channel and do that. But yeah, until then, it's going to be on the back burner for a while. Yeah, and Drew's right. It is kind of a virtue signal thing. I think it's a great example of leadership. You took the recourses into account for the next battle, so the majority of the team is ready for real battle ahead. Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of those things I carried over. Even when I was teaching at Fleet School, I ate a lot of shit for my students, and I didn't pass any of it down to them. I'm like, that's kind of the point. But it also kind of inspired me to assume, you guys give me 100% all the time. I don't care. I'll eat shit from them, but you better be the shit for me. Worked out well, too. I mean, there's always hiccups. I still remember the time when my students went drunk to work. They had a fitness test, an express test the day before, one day. This is my second class, I think it was. And so I'm like, all right, guys, you have normally you're supposed to be at work at 7:30. And I told them, you guys have a fitness test at 9 o'clock. Just sleep in, do your thing, stay out of trouble, do your test at 9, come back at 11 when you're done. And we'll start the day off from there. Go to my instructors. I'm like, yeah, so they got a fitness test this morning. All right, good. So now you know where they are. I guess the night before, they're like, well, we got 2 hours in the morning, so let's go get drunk. They got drunk on a Tuesday. Next day to work, they showed up at the express test. One chick was drunk and started mouthing off to the PSP staff. I get dragged into the office what the hell is with your students? I'm like, what's the matter? They were drunk yelling at the PSP staff. I'm like, fuck. So I got chewed out for that. And they got sent into the classroom, wait for me, and I just get in there. I just remember looking at them, and they were like, oh, he's going to yell at us. I'm not, I think I actually said, I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed. And then I just left. I remember them telling me too, because at the very beginning, here's one thing. If you ever do a military course, here's how you establish dominance or make a very smooth running course. Your very first day, choose somebody out for 15 minutes for whatever reason, smallest reason, within earshot of the class, but not in front of the class. So you establish punish in private, praise in public, harsh but fair, and then I'm not to be fucked with. The rest of the class will go perfectly. And then if something does happen, don't yell. That's the only time you should ever have to yell. You get quieter, you get softer, you speak less. And it works like a charm. I remember that. The course party, the students came back to me. There's 3 of them in particular. They're buying me a drink because they hated my boss. And they're like, I can't believe you put up with them. Thanks. They bought me a beer and they're like, by the way, the worst I have ever felt was that time we got drunk on the express test. And you came in and you didn't yell at us. I'm like, I really wanted you to yell at us. And I was like, I know you did. I wanted to be yelled at when I did it. I was teaching QL3, which is basic trades qualification for sailors. So basically the first course a guy will have after his basic training. Dude, Nick's got a good point. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it, on Nick's channel, throw a link in here if you can, Nick. He talks a lot about startup culture. Well, it's not even discussed. It was disappointment, right? But if you guys like startup culture, He's got a bunch of podcasts on that. He's been doing startup businesses for a while now, and he goes over a lot of stuff that it's not even applicable to me. So it's like I'm learning things like hiring people, venture capital, all that stuff. It's worth the watch. Do you do any sailing or live in the classroom? Well, I mean, I did sailing, but not as an instructor. Instructor is just in-house. Because what'll happen is, all right, so you'll do your basic training. And then after your basic training, you'll have what's called a QL3, or they used to call it TQ3, your trades qualification. And that teaches you to be a good bosun or a good radar operator or a good whatever. And then there's another course, and the name is escaping me right now, but the name's changed anyway. And that's your basic sailor qualifications. And that's where they teach you, what a capstan is, what's part of the ship is the bow, which is the stern. How do you haul lines for a raz? How do you cheese the lines? All the sailor stuff that you need to know. How do you fight? How do you do any firefighting? The firefighting phases were kind of cool. And then once you have those 3 courses, then you're assigned to a ship. So, yeah. And I know it wasn't exactly what I said, but that's essentially what it was. And I remember it's funny too. Like, I looked like such a stereotypical sailor because I remember coming in there. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember I came in there with like a cup of coffee in my hand, which had like some random quote that didn't apply to me, like world's greatest dad or some shit. Came in there, take the beret off, throw it on the tables, like, you fucking guys. Like, where you know it's funny, everybody does it, and you used to do it, but at the same time, you have to be the heavy on this one, and you really didn't like how they've inconvenienced your day with this bullshit, and you expected better. It's all theater. And that's the thing with all this stuff, with the work ethic stuff, the 8 to 10 hour grind, it's all theater, man. Nobody really cares. Everybody's just kind of going through the motions as if they care. Literally, it's The Emperor Has No Clothes. If you guys haven't read that little short story, it's definitely worth the read. It's kind of a freeing thing once you realize that, though. Nobody cares, and you can play the game if you want to, but if it's not serving your interests, you don't have to play it. Now, sometimes there might be consequences, and just be aware of what they are and own them when they happen. And if it's one of those ones like everybody does where you get blindsided by a consequence you didn't know what happens, well, you don't know what you don't know. You eat what you have to eat, and whatever happens, you're going to be fine. I mean, long term. Short term, you might get fucked, but whatever. And I think those are like, for New Year's resolutions, I think this is stuff that's better. Because I can't teach it in a classroom. I can't sell you guys a Gumroad course on this. I can tell you some anecdotes. I can tell you some stories that other people done. Sometimes we even had enough anecdotes that we can pool them together and make kind of a theory and wrap it around it. That's like red pill, right? But for the most part, you have to experience it. You have to learn it the hard way. The only advantage I find is because most guys, I could tell them a lot of this stuff and they'll be like, yeah, whatever. You're just a boomer, or, some kind of way of dismissing it, or I'm smarter than you. It'll never apply to me. You're like, all right, fine. You've officially gotten your permission to go and learn this the hard way on your own. And they totally can. Geez, I'm sounding like an old man. I need to get older so I can actually be an old man, because this acting like an old man with a younger man face. Philbert, I'll get to your question in a second here. Sorry about the smash there. What was I just talking about? Oh, yeah. So newest book on the Sidebar series, most likely going to be Practical Female Psychology. Having said that, one second here. Let me go to my notes. That one's still advanced. I do want to save it. But there's also 16 Commandments of Poon, Book of Puck, 48 Laws of Power. I'm probably not going to do The Way of the Superior Man, but maybe I will, but I won't give it as much depth as the other things. It's mostly about feeling like a man. And honestly, I would rather talk about Jack Donovan than David Daida anyway. So those ones are all in the docket. I'll probably start with some smaller stuff like that. Just stop using moisturizer. You son of a bitch. How dare you, sir? Oh yeah, so back to this thing. So the learning it your hard way. The best, and this is what I found works generally the best. Nobody will listen to somebody with experience. people with experience are old, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm smarter and better than them because my mom loves me. All right, fine. So don't try to learn from this stuff. Here's what happens, though. Pay attention, kind of remember this stuff, keep it in the back of your mind, and then when something like this does happen to you, you can recall those things you heard, and now that they're applicable to you, you'll learn it. And this is, honestly, this is probably one of the better ways I've seen people, take the red pill. I was the same way. In fact, almost every person that you would know of when you think of the red pill who's been a regular on like the Reddit or on Twitter or whatever, they'll always have a story where, yeah, my first account got banned. My first account got blocked. And then I got mad, and then I realized that they were right, and I just got ego invested in me being cool. And then I learned from it, my second account, and here I am. Everybody has that story. Because everybody didn't want to hear it. Everybody thought they were smarter, everybody thought they were better, and everybody thought these guys were just complaining. And then it happens to you, and now you're like, okay, now it makes sense. Thanks for the lessons, guys. So yeah, it really is. We really are our own worst enemies. And that's another reason, like, two big things I've taken from that. One, this is why proselytizing doesn't work. I don't want to fucking evangelize people. I don't want missionary work. I don't want people to red pill their friends, because you're not going to fucking do it. And if you do it, all you're going to do is convince them that the cool club is this one. And they're going to join this club because they want to be part of the gang. Like, I'm still amazed when I see guys, yeah, I've been red pilled for 7 months. What's a Rolo Tomasi? And you're like, oh, for fuck's sakes, dude. You're killing me. You're fucking killing me. I watched 3 of Donovan's things and 1 of Jester's things, and now what's red pill? And you're like, ah. Insert the Family Guy 30-second time killing joke about stubbing your toe. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Some of it too is just age. Like I said, I lurked on it 2013, 2014. I think it was 2015 when I actually had my own little Batman origin story that I even bothered to contribute and take it more seriously. But it's just the process. So the first part is everybody did get banned, so there's no point proselytizing. And then the other part is on it, like, you can't do that because it makes sycophants. I think the worst thing that ever happened to the red-pilled space is that some idiot thought it was cool. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. As soon as somebody thought it was cool, that's when you start getting all the other crap. That's where the pink pill and the black pill and purple pill, I still think all of those guys are complete assholes. Like, I still can't get past the idea that the red pill was just like a loose metaphor. Yeah, it's a cool line from the Matrix, so kids who liked science fiction in the 1990s, they'll get it, and they'll understand what the point here is. Keone Golf just did this one-off post like in 2007. Who's a Hawaiian libertarian, if you guys don't know. He was the very first example of when the red pill kind of came in. I want to say it was like February 2007. Right around the time, like, Royce and that was still doing his first year stuff, but I think Keone was the one who first kind of conceptualized it as a concept of the red pill. And that was just essentially what we've been saying this whole time. Everybody lies to you. Everybody lies to themselves. They're all lying to each other. Who's at fault, the drug dealer or the drug pusher? And then his idea is, okay, having a clear head and walking through this stuff objectively, that's the red pill. And that's all it was. That, sexual dynamics. Do not get me started on the showing receipts crap, man. So don't help people. Don't show it to people. I honestly, this is going to sound weird, and I'm kind of crossing into a topic that I know is going to draw a certain type of person, but it kind of reminds me of the Hebrew religion. You know how, like, there's no Jewish missionaries, there's no Hebrew, like, proselytizing. They actually don't want you to join. They're like, no, if you're Israeli you can join, but don't. But you see what I mean? And it's doing well for itself, but it's never tried to be like a super mainstream one. And I'm just like, I'm fine with that same kind of system for this place. Yeah. And the let them burn policy. Here's the funny thing too. That let them burn, If you guys don't know, that's the policy when you talk to anybody who's been red pilled for a length of time, where it's like, hey, don't you want to save the West? You got to help your fellow man. We got to work together. We got to teach these thoughts a lesson. And the answer you get back from any of these guys is, you know what? Fuck them. Let them burn. There's a reason that that specific phrase has worked so well. And it's the same reason that dread game as a concept is so important, is so popular as it is in this space, or AWOLT, all women are like that. It has that neat kind of bait and switch property. And I talked about it briefly in my video about She's Not Yours, It's Just Your Turn. The one where I kind of held Jason Somnes to task and disagreed wholeheartedly with his red-pilled take on loving women. Oh. Found a few people in the RP, but due to so many grifters, they don't find the Rule Zero crew and just need a gentle nudge. Yeah, I mean, if you want. To be honest, I'm fine with growth the way that things are. I'm not in a rush. Last thing I want to do is commingle with a lot of those guys. Their audiences are so autistic and toxic that I'm just like, you can have them. Take their money, man. I don't even mind. What was I just talking about? Only his eyes raise. Proselytizing? Damn it, I shouldn't have lost my train of thought. All right, so we're talking about evangelizing, how there's no point to doing that. Oh, right, the John Somnes call-out thing. So, shit. Ah, well, I lost the train of thought. If somebody can remind me in there, we'll go back to it, which is too bad because it was going somewhere. I just can't remember where now. Talk about your most awkward things. It's the one thing I've learned in these podcasts is never to have dead time and forget what you're talking about. Oh, the terminology. That's the one. Okay. Let them burn. And it's purposefully got that kind of barb to it. It has to be like, fuck them. It can't just be... There's a lot of sayings that kind of get the same point across, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, or it's not your job to save them. Like, there's all kinds of sayings that get to the same thing, which is you need to be indifferent for somebody else's life and different to your own. It's no different than clean your room if you want to be like fully honest about it. But it's got that adversarial nature to it, which appeals to guys. Guys always think of things in general as if they're adversarial. It's not that he's not ready. It's not that he may not want it. It's not that you're trying to help him because you just want validation for your own life choices. Nah, fuck him. Let him burn. And as a guy, you're like, yeah, that's awesome. Let him burn. I'm awesome. They'll be begging me. But then afterwards, you kind of understand the wisdom to it, where it's like, oh, okay, let him burn. It's like, he needs to get burned. Like those trees, it's like that tree that doesn't drop its seeds until it catches fire. I think it's eucalyptus. Yeah, so let him burn. And then it loses the pejorative sense of like, yeah, fuck these assholes. It's just like, oh, letting them burn. Same as all women are like that. All women are like that. And some soccer mom, Karen, will be like, I'm not like that. It's like, no, of course you are. That's fine, though. You're like that when you want to be, and you're not like that when you don't want to be. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to assume you're like that because at some point you will be, and that's fine. Yeah. 20% is pretty high, though. I'll give you credit on that one. Better than me. Yeah. Which is nice, too. Like I said, and here's the thing about all these, red pill rules or whatever. There's always exceptions. Don't get married. I still hold to this day that's one of the only hard and fast rules in the sphere. But that's the point with these rules, is that once you understand why they're in place, you'll understand if and when to break them. So let them burn is one of those rules that you know why you're letting it burn, why you're letting the guy burn. You know why you're not trying to proselytize. You don't want the ego investment. You don't want the covert contract. If I help him, he'll be have gratitude towards me. You don't want any of that shit. And then if all of that stuff isn't there and there's somebody who needs a gentle push, then yeah, sure, help them out. But that kind of comes with it. It's not a bunch of assholes on the internet telling you what to think. You should do this and you should do that. It's like, no, it's just how to think. Let them burn. Here's why you let them burn. You don't want to have it as a covert contract where you expect them to take your advice and then you're going to build resentment. So don't do that. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. And it all kind of encapsulates and let them burn. But then you realize, okay, so now that I know why I'm letting them burn, If there's this situation here where I'm not falling into any of those pit traps, yeah, sure, help them out. Red pill your friends, whatever. But you can't just tell a guy that. It's the same as I've been saying this whole hour and a half. You can't tell somebody this stuff. They have to experience it. And it's the same thing with the proselytizing thing. You can't throw Rollo Tomasi's book at somebody and say, read this, it'll change your life. And he's like, what are you selling me? Amway products? What the fuck is this? They're not going to read the fucking book. You'd be surprised how many people do that, by the way. It's the one thing I was annoyed about it so much from like philosophy Twitter and shit that I actually commented on it today. Just one of my random fucking musings. Is that most of like philosophy Twitter and YouTubers on philosophy, they can't actually discuss philosophy. They can only quote philosophers. And a lot of people are like that too. It's like you're trying to red pill your friends, but if your only sales pitch is read Rollo Tomasi, then you don't fucking know what you're talking about anyway. So just like stop helping. You know what I mean? If investing in people builds attraction towards the person making the investment, well, no, it's actually the opposite. Dude, laws of power. See, that's the thing. 48 laws of power. When you do somebody a favor, they actually resent you more than if they do you a favor. Ben Franklin effect. He used to do that. Whenever he met somebody new, he would ask to borrow a book from them. And then they lent him a book. And then in the future, they were like, well, I've already done nice things for him, so I must like this guy. And they kind of went with that. Here's the thing, though. If you start investing in people, thinking that you're going to build attraction as that covert contract, I'm going to invest in this girl, and she's going to show me gratitude. I'm going to invest in this guy, and he's going to improve his life and thank me for it. They now know that they owe you. And people hate owing people. And if they have, and a lot of times, at least in 40 Laws of Power and some of the examples they had there, and I'm sure a lot of people can come up with examples in their own life too. You help somebody with the expectations of reciprocity, and they actually resent you for now owing you. And it ends up working against you. So I would not invest in people less or more than they invest in you. Again, it's just the 2/3 rule for life. Typical with all this red pill stuff. It turns out it's, you get it for hitting on women, but then it turns out, it's kind of works in other things too. Oh man, I guess he wants to reach a lot more people, but it's always a sad thing. But that's just a numbers game. I have a feeling, what's he at now? 50,000 subscribers? I have a feeling 5 times this size, probably going to have a lot more spurgs anyway. Or maybe that's why I'm growing so much slower, is because it's like spurg free. Turns out there's just not many of you normal functioning guys out there, and most people are autistic. And by cutting off the autistic audience, it's really 71,000. Good for him. Just lets you know then, man. On YouTube, 1 out of every 7 guys is not autistic. Oh, that's funny. All right. Anyways, so this topic is basically done. I know these usually go on till 11, but I don't want to just roll on if we don't have to. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I'm going to spend a couple minutes here in the chat chilling with you guys, and then we're going to call it a day. Let's see what we got here. That's awesome. I'm going to steal that. Dude, everything. Good ideas are borrowed. Great ideas are stolen. I actually I didn't get into a Reddit argument. A Redditor started shitting on me a couple days back. He wrote he's one of those guys, he writes the same post every year, and it's just some inflammatory thing to piss people off, so he can just say they don't get it. And he brags about his monthly Reddit posting, but it's all like copy-pasted stuff. But here's the funny part. And I just kind of laughed, calling him an ass model of Instagram. He just basically wants adoration, and he gets mad at me. He starts flipping names at him. I'm like, all right, man, give it up. This guy's 3 years. He's shit on me for the exact same things. But, yeah, he's calling himself red-pilled as well. So I don't know why you'd want to call yourself a red-pilled. Definitely not. It's definitely not a cool term to give yourself. It's not going to buy you any clout. Did I do a typo? Son of a bitch. All right. Some men wants to watch the world burn. Your style is totally different. Oh, I agree. That's on purpose. Actually, that's one thing I will suggest for you guys. I know a few of you in here have your own channels and that, and a lot of you kind of already know this, but because I did get Yeah. Oh, you're not wrong either. So I've occasionally gotten emails from guys saying, I'm starting a YouTube channel. What do you think? And they always send me like one of their videos that they just did. And it's always the same thing where it's like PowerPoint presentation of why women are bad. The one thing I would say is if you want to be a content creator, if you want to write stuff about your, masculine experience, how you can get people red pilled, all that kind of stuff, or if you want to do a video on it, or tweet on it, or blog on it, or whatever. Ooh, we'll get to that in a sec. The worst thing you can do is consume too much of other people's content because it drives your thoughts. And which really sucks because there's a lot of guys on here. I used to watch Clary's stuff all the time, and now I don't watch it at all. And same thing with Rich and Rolo stuff. I can't watch anybody's stuff. The only thing I actually make an effort to still like consume or read is Carl's stuff, his blog. Everything else, I just try to watch as little of it as possible. Like, first off, I'm busy. But second off, and I kind of noticed this when I first got on Twitter, is that the red pill masculine dudes, or whatever the fuck you want to call them, they're just 6-year-olds playing soccer. Whoever comes up with the most engaging thought that morning, everybody else chases it around. And I didn't like the idea of some random asshole driving how I think and what I think about and what my content is. So if my stuff is different, that's because I essentially just try to be influenced as little as possible with other people's ideas, and I come up with my own. But, I mean, at the same time, that's the trickier part. It's so much easier now that, Trump does something crazy, then Tim Pool, Sargon of Akkad, and Razor Fist, and who's that Stick 666 guy or whatever? Like, 10 people will automatically have a comment on it. And then you realize that you're not even in control of your own content. It's somebody else is in control of it, and they're dictating what you talk about. I never liked that idea. I never liked, like, the whole point of starting your own business as a content creator is to create works, entertaining, informational, whatever. And by not being in control of that, like, ultimately, most political pundits right now, for better or for worse, Trump has dictated what their content has been for the last 4 years. And now that he's gone, I have a feeling a lot of them have no idea what to do because they don't have anything of their own. All they know how to do is react to somebody else, which, by the way, is exactly what I say when I talk about like why I hate the black pill and purple pill and pink pill and all that shit. Because without us around to say, I hate you guys, they have nothing. Purple pill would not exist if it wasn't for red. As soon as, like, let's say red pill got wiped off the map tomorrow, never existed, they scrubbed it off the internet, what would purple pill talk about? They got nothing. Black pillars, they only call themselves black pillars because they have a red pill to vilify. Like, fuck off. Anyways, One Man's Way, thank you for the $20 super chat, brother. Funny thing, MGTOW started out with a dude with a girlfriend telling guys just don't get married. The Spurgs took over everything. Oh, dude, you're not even wrong. Like, if you guys don't know, there's a good book, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It's called Manosphere, with an exclamation mark, written by Ian Ironwood. And it's probably the best history book of the sphere. It goes as far back as like the 80s, so it's pretty comprehensive. I remember this too because, you know what, I'll mention names, whatever. He's already got me blocked. He's not watching this. So Jack Murphy, when we all started first working together and kind of getting our thing around this thing, he's like, oh man, it'd be great. I should write a history book of the sphere. And I'm like, oh, you mean like Manosphere by Ironwood? And he goes, yeah. Oh, I never heard of it. Kind of made me laugh, like he's calling himself red pilled. How do you not know who Ian Ironwood is? What's a Rollo Tomasi? But yeah, the MGTOW. So MGTOW was originally, I do want to say PUA kind of was like the first guys club on the internet. Started on the Usenet. So it was like literally the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, that kind of thing. And a lot of those guys, once they aged out of their 20s and they stopped doing pickup, they ended up with something else they called the Purarchy, Purarchy. It's essentially like a proto-MGTOW. And they were the ones that realized, they worshipped women for most of their lives and their childhoods, the Disney fantasy, that kind of stuff. And then they had kind of realized, just through sheer experience, that women ain't shit. They're like, oh my God, these broads are killing me. And that's where stuff like solipsism kind of came up and became like a term that was been used throughout. And so what happened with a lot of those guys who were former pickup artists is a few of them decided with all this information, they were going to go MGTOW. And for them, MGTOW was just burnout from pickup. Like, I'm so tired of all this dating. These chicks are brutal. It was never about being celibate. These guys are essentially like, my notch counts in the triple digits. I don't care anymore. And to be honest, a lot of these broads are just brutal. And so that's what the original MGTOW was. The idea was, I'm checking out. I'm going to go do my own thing. And then it was supposed to kind of branch off into like, what would you do? Essentially, how would you live if you were gay? Like, if women weren't the driving factor in your social life, what would you do? And that's why you got guys like Clary talking about how he just flips the bird, but he's off hiking and he's off enjoying his life. It's like a lifestyle movement. But it's since got kind of, like one man here is saying, the Spurks took it over and then it became like this weird coping strategy. And now those guys, and it's like this weird cycle. It's the same as dating apps. So the pickup artist created Purarchy, kind of created MGTOW, and they built it into something that was really cool. A lot of people liked it. You had some good people that were in it, like Aaron Clary, Terrence Popp, yada, yada. And then unattractive people swarmed in on it because it was so attractive. They're like, oh, I love this. They ruin it, and they're like, oh, this thing sucks. And then they go move on to the next thing, which happened to be the black pill. And it's just like dating platforms in that, like when Tinder, and I'll use a bunch of examples, but when Tinder first started, it was attractive, slutty people got onto it. It's like, oh, it's great. Swipe this person. Hey, you want to hook up? Sure. And they go. It's like, this app is awesome. I got laid 5 times today. And then a bunch of unattractive people that really suck at dating, they get onto it and they flood the market. And then all these attractive people are like, I don't like anybody on this app. And then they move on to Hinge or they move on to Bumble. And it's like this constant game where like attractive people, sexual people, switched on people make something and they make something good. And then the regression of the mean happens and the big horde comes in and just shits it all up. Happens with everything, by the way. It happened with the Red Pilled subreddit. It happened with dating apps. Essentially anything. It's called regression to the mean. It's just one of those things. So if we are the new Jews, will SJW come for us first? Oh, dear God. Yeah. Thank you very much for the super chat, though. I appreciate the support. I have 2 hard and fast rules when it comes to the internet. 1, no satire about struggle hugging. And 2, no blunt commentary on 1945 Austrian painter scene. I just find no good comes from either of those, and the only reason people use either of those things is because they want to drum up controversy. And yeah, well, I'll make a joke. I'll call it struggle hugging instead of what it is, because I'm not going to treat it too seriously, and I'll call it the Austrian painter scene because I don't want to treat it too seriously either. But yeah, the last thing I need is to invite the shift 999000 crowd. You know what I mean? Yeah, Carl, 2 books, 1 and 2. Surprised. Come on. Carl's been on every episode of this show except for like the last 2. By the way, we had lost a few people when I brought a girl on the show. Showed you guys 2 hours of how to open a conversation with a person. You guys, a bunch of you guys MGTOW'd your mind out. Oh, okay, so Adam, you don't know this. Okay, yeah, Carl, he's reading 2 books, Gendernomics 1 and 2. The first one is where he approaches the sexual marketplace in the same way that an economist would approach an economy. It's actually funny because I helped him redesign for his second edition. I designed the cover for him because his first cover was this from this guy, Adam Costello. I think he's on Twitter. He's a autist anyway. His looked like a 1990s science textbook. And I'm like, dude, I got to fix your cover. He goes, all right, sure, go ahead. Time to be passionate in the new year. Follow Chesty, guys. The passionate authenticity you've always wanted. So I looked at his book, and then that was the theme of his book. In the same way that Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations is kind of like the manuscript for capitalism, Gendernomics was the sexual marketplace version of that. So I'm like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure the aesthetics of your book matches the aesthetics of your message. And so I had gone and looked up like a first edition Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And there was a copy. It was all beat to shit, but it was essentially that like yellowed calfskin with red band. And I'm like, that's exactly what it looks like. So we're going to take that aesthetic and apply it to your book. And then that's how they look now. But yeah, that was his first one. And then the second one was his take on this. So like now that you've read Gendernomics 1 and you've seen from an economics perspective, the sexual marketplace, how do you go from 0 to 100? Like, how do you go from not knowing anything to doing things? Like, basic stuff, like how do you wash your balls kind of thing so you don't smell like a yak? Yeah. That's a good question, actually. You'll have to ask. Chesty will be the one to know that. He's been the monster in this chat, and I'm not going to lie to you. This guy's probably more valuable than 90% of the very, very prolific content creators in this space. The man's putting in serious work. But yeah, ask him if you want to know the numbers of how many people got lost their mind when a girl came in here. Now he had a boot. But anyways, I was trying to end this thing, but now that Chesty's here, I kind of want to enjoy a couple minutes with him. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to end this one. 40 minutes, Rollo Tomasi's channel. Ooh. Damn. Oh, yeah, 40 minutes, Rollo Tomasi's channel. We're going to talk about the New Year's resolutions. Oh, wait. Where was it? That's not what I'm looking. So if you're asking on, like, for a basic primer on red pilled stuff, there's two ways you can approach this. There is what's the minimum amount you would need to know to kind of understand. Oh, nice. Look at that. Looks like the autism-free audience was a thing. You could take it as in, like, you want to understand it from an outside perspective. If I want to learn red pill, what's the best way to do it? Or you can take it from an inside perspective. Starting at 0, what do I start with first? So from a red pilled perspective, if you want to just learn it the same way like a museum curator would want to learn it, I would argue you can't go wrong with the 3 R's. Go with Royce, Roosh, and Rollo. First year Royce, his first year of his blog, first year of Rollo's blog, and fuck, that's the problem is Roosh got rid of his stuff, so you can't even really see his anymore. I would say those 2 to start, absolute bare minimum. Then start with then Keone Galt's post on what is the red pill back in 2007. And then from there, if you can expand into, there's a couple authors, Ian Ironwood, Athol Kay, David Franco, and who am I missing? Ian Ironwood, Athol Kay. Oh no, I think that's it there. Oh, and then Book of Puck. If you get those ones together, I think you pretty much got everything you need from a perspective. But if it comes to, like, how do you learn this stuff as you go, I would argue the sidebars from Reddit's Married Red Pill and The Red Pill are probably your best bet. Like, the Red Pill kind of brings it from a single guy, average frustrated Trump. What do you need? And they kind of almost run through it the same way that you would process it yourself being red pilled. Like, the first part is, the first couple posts are anger phase stuff. Whammon ain't shit. There's like the misandry bubble. There's Michael's story. There's the manipulated man. And that's the kind of stuff that you're angry. Here's why you're angry is justified and validated. And then it starts talking about game. And then it starts getting into Rollo stuff. And then it kind of is like, once you're past the anger phase, what do you get into there? And then it works from there. I think it's a really nice process of going through it. Same thing with the Married Red Pill. If you're coming from the perspective of you did all the right things, why now are you so unhappy? Like when you get to the point of desperation that you have to type into Google, why won't my wife fuck me? And then they kind of start just flat out and unfucking you. They don't worry about letting you know, like, hey, this is how the space is organized. Like, none of that. Like, look, here's probably what you're fucking up. Start here. And that's why it's like Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy, Manuel Smith's When I Say No Feel Guilty. Your big problem right now is you're a bit of a pussy, you're not assertive, and you're too much of a nice guy with covert contracts. We fix those 3 things, get you working out, then we'll worry on the rest. It's kind of systematic, so. Oh man, I had forgotten all about that. Illimitable Man, yeah, with that book that's eventually coming out. But I agree, yeah, for like my stuff or Carl's stuff, that's not the first thing you should read. Mine is arguably more infotainment than it is like an instruction manual anyway. Mine's more of a narrative format, so I am not the guy to read if you want to like learn to be better with Whammon and stuff. Danny, yes, you're absolutely right. There's a reason why I incorporated my company as 4th R Consulting, although I think now it's just going to be 4th R. Oh, geez. Well, that is a horrible thing to say. Wait, 9:48. Who was in here at 9:48? I don't see that. Yeah, there is a our dead bedrooms. It's with his S though. Yeah, yeah, go check it out if you want to. They hate us. We went through this process every now and again where occasionally somebody would try and red pill people in there because they love to complain that, oh, well, your wife's just low libido, so you just got to get used to jerking off in the bathroom. Or the problem's not you, it's him. And everybody just copes and sulks. So finally, one guy went in there, like he always, like every 6 months, one of the guys would be in there. It's like, hey, I used to have this exact same thing. Here's what I did, and here's why it worked, and now I'm happy. Good luck, guys. The moderators will get complaints from like the feminism subreddit saying these guys are misogynist. You shouldn't listen to them. They remove the guy's post. They ban the guy and they say, we will not discuss this stuff. We will not discuss sex anymore in a successful manner. Go back to coping, please. And I'm like, how bad is that? Like, it makes sense. If you're in a dead bedroom complaining about on the internet about how your wife treats you like shit and you like constantly abjugate your self-interest to her, and this is the one place you're supposed to go that it can't happen, like to be helpful about it. And what happens? You just get some internet wife doing the same thing to you, berating you there until you do what she wants. Like, say what you will, but it's not a LARP. Those people truly are in lives of quiet desperation because they don't know how else to conduct themselves. By the way, this is the point here. When we say don't get married, this would be a more accurate way of describing it. The legal implications of marriage are suboptimal. The problem is that doesn't fit on a coffee mug or a poster or a t-shirt. So, Jesus. These are getting progressively more and more fucking harsh. You guys are brutal. By the way, guys, don't suicide. If you ever get the need to, call this number. It's not my fault if you do. Makes me laugh. Anyway, so yeah, this time, I'm really going to end it this time. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. Hope you guys enjoy your morning. Go grab yourself some breakfast. Go do your thing. Half an hour from now, we're going to Rolo's channel. We'll probably be on Donovan Standard Time because we usually spend the first 10 minutes amongst ourselves just shooting the shit and telling some stories and laughing at who the latest retard is. So, but then when we get on, if the stories are particularly good, we'll share them with you guys. So it'll be fun. Anyways, I'll see you guys there.